Hello. I just finished a fabulous book. Want to tell you all about it. It's titled The Black Madonna, Mysterious Soul Companion, and it's by Stephanie Georgieff. Today, we get to talk to Stephanie one on one. Now, she's a podcast host. Her podcast is titled The Black Madonna Speaks, and she gives workshops all over the world on the Black Madonna. She is a trip. She is a woman that is always asked, were there any women there? She is a woman, an acupuncturist, and really dives into some very thorough research on the Black Madonna. So in her book, she goes through history and looks at Black Madonna through colonialism, through the Black Madonna breathing a healing. And she looks at materials. She's thanking the artist. She's looking at it through the elements of water. She's really looking at the cosmology of the Black Madonna. And this is what we talk about in today's episode. I hope you enjoy it because it is something that has inspired me to go on another pilgrimage, and you can join me as well in September. I'm going to leave a little bit more about that on my website. But for now, let's dive into Stephanie's interpretations of the Black Madonna. Hello, Stephanie,
Hello.
sister. Thank you
Hello.
so much for being here. Hello.
Mhm. Greetings.
I think it's really a great thing that we share with everybody that we've been trying to get together for an episode for some time now. And
Yes.
I'm so attracted to how you speak about Black Madonna. And basically, you are her messenger and
Yes.
channel with your podcast and with your book. So I
Mhm.
just can't wait to dive in. But just as the divine does, like she has you meeting with me today in a library. So I think that's so cool in the art section, right?
Yes, in the art section. Theme. I'm always about theme.
Well, it's so perfect because when I started reading your book, what I was buzzing about from the very beginning is how you said, I want to thank the artist that made the Black Madonnas.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, we're getting together. Your research is so thorough.
Mhm.
You know, you were looking at Black Madonna throughout the ages. So we're going to talk about what was happening politically and socially during these times.
Mhm.
You're looking at color, you're looking at it through material,
Mhm.
through the elements like
Mhm.
water. Yeah, I just could not get enough of it. I just binged your book
Mhm. Thank you.
and getting into the meaning. But as we can we just start in like with
Sure.
chapter 6 through 8, maybe, and
Sure.
just go through
We'll
those?
start
I mean,
anywhere you
you
like.
have such a neat lens
Mhm.
through the feminine divine.
Mhm.
How was there like a turning point that you were just like, oh no, feminine divine, I must go see every Black Madonna? Or what, how did you get that spark? What was the
Well, I talk about that a little bit in the book, how I was attending the Sophia Institute in, of course, the Bay Area. And we had a module on women's spirituality. And the speaker was China Galland. And her book is Longing for Darkness. That's what it's called. And what she's looking at is the Black Madonna and Kali. So
mm-hmm.
she's looking at those connections. And the book is really well written. She's not a great speaker, but her book is amazing. And I chose a card. We were supposed to choose a card with an image of a Black Madonna on it and then see what it was saying to us. And I'm never very good at those kind of things, which I think is funny. But I was looking at this image and I was what it was saying to me is stop making me who you think I am. I am who I am. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And we were supposed to write a paper for that. And so I started delving into different things that I thought she was in terms of who is she. And there's a really interesting concept that's kind of counter to modern materialistic medicine. And it's the scientific method, and it's basically what is in front of me. And the Goetheanen, based on Wolfgang Goethe, who's the guy who invented the theory of color,
Mm.
his scientific method says, who is in front of me?
Oh,
And that's a different question, and
yeah.
it's different answers. And so when I look at nature, when I look at people, when I look at events, when I look at anything, I think of who is it and what is this trying to say? And art, as I say in the beginning, is a way, the one way I look at art is that art is the creation of organs of perception that the spiritual world is conveying to us. And I think that's such a rich way to look at art. And you, as an artist, and I think the reason you resonated with my dedication
Yeah.
was that you really can't explain what it is that you do. You simply do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's huge books on all of these, and people take classes, but it's really this letting of this flowing of this energy coming through you as an artist. And what's fascinating about basically the era of the Black Madonna, which is essentially the Middle Ages, essentially, and it's from the beginning of when art took a form in Christianity, which was about the 300s, 400s, and it's up until essentially the Renaissance. And there was rarely an artist associated with religious art
Mm.
because the artists didn't consider themselves the author. They considered themselves as essentially what we would call channeling, which I
Mm.
think is fascinating. And so for me, the spark for me personally is having this deep love for the divine, but not necessarily having the vocabulary or orientation that has been taught through traditional Christian approaches.
Yeah.
We're told as women we're responsible for, the downfall of humanity.
Yeah.
And in many Christian sects, we're not even seen as valuable to spread the gospel and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't agree with that.
Don't agree with, yeah. Yes.
And there's got to be more than just me disagreeing with that. And so I have found the Black Madonna as this incredible metaphor for the graciousness of divinity through the feminine approach. So
I hear
that's,
you, sister.
that's what
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. And I'm so surprised with my fascination for Black Madonna. Yeah. Was this something that you've been studying since at an early age, or is this something that came on more in a different phase of your life?
Well, I think the specific study of the Black Madonna really started with that course,
Mm,
which was in the early 2000s.
okay.
But my curiosity with the divine feminine
Yeah.
essentially started when I was attending Missouri Lutheran
Oh,
middle school
yeah.
and being told because of my reproductive anatomy
Yes.
that I was less than in the eyes of God. And I just was like, I can't accept that.
I'm so happy you didn't accept that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think God does either. But I just, yeah. So I kind of went through my angry feminist period at 12 and 13, and through that study,
Yeah.
um, because I just always want to know why. I was like, yeah, it's not what they're saying is actually not biblical, and it's actually not um, appropriate. So I got over my anger, and it's
Okay.
like, you do you.
Yeah.
I don't see that this is valid.
Yeah.
And I'm much happier. And I think, at the risk of saying I'm right, I'm correct, but I do think I am. So I don't feel the need to prove it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what was the groundwork. And then the Black Madonna was this really interesting metaphor. So I started going into that. Mhm.
That's so neat. Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, God is love. And
Exactly.
yeah, I am so fascinated with, I don't have a large vocabulary for the Christian religion. So
Mhm.
if any of the listeners are like, hearing me stumble on some words, I don't have a vocabulary for
Mhm.
it. Even though I am a total devotee to Mary Magdalene, I don't even, a lot of what is written in any gospel, I don't really have a huge grasp on. Um, but so when you were talking about Lutheran out, upbringing, I can imagine what some of that is, but I don't know exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, so I mean, the lens that you look at when you are traveling to Black, so you have seen many Black Madonna,
Mhm.
and this is your livelihood. You are a devotee, like you are traveling to the different countries to go and see.
Mhm. There's a
So
lot of them.
there
If you
is.
if you look at a map, there's another basic Bible of Black Madonnas, and it's called The Cult of the Black Virgin by Ian Begg.
Hmm.
And he has a map of Europe, and there's like a bunch of dots. Like there's a bunch of these things. And another wonderful resource is the Interfaith Mary uh, website, and
Hmm.
she has an interactive map. And there's about, I think, 400 or 500 of these just in Europe. And I've been going across the ocean and looking at ones in Central, South America, North America, and also in the Pacific Islands. It's just such a fascinating um, gesture. These images are such fascinating gestures. And what I find personally rewarding about them, is they're very healing. Um, Most people visit Black Madonnas for healing,
Hmm.
but they're also very healing to the rifts within culture, and specifically in terms of race. And so when I've spoken, because I've talked about these all over, literally all over the planet, and what's really healing but also heartbreaking to me is how women who have more melanin in their skin than I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
will come up and say, I finally have something that looks like me. I have something that resembles divinity that looks like me. And that is so healing for them, but also for those of us who don't have a lot of melanin in our skin,
Yeah.
and for us to see divinity in those who with dark skin, which is very
Yes.
healing. That's what I really love about the image.
Uh, I can give us a hallelujah right there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when you're in your research, like you get so thorough in your book talking about where we are in history with when the Black Madonnas are coming in more through Europe. But I got to tell you, can we pause on that for a second and
Sure.
go to the Black Madonnas in the Pacific Islands?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, where and what and how?
Well, they it's interesting, particularly with the Pacific Islands, because when you look at the history of basically the history of colonization, the
Yeah.
European colonization, and these images basically companioned that. And in terms of the Pacific Islands, these images were mostly either from Europe or from basically Mexico. And they were carved and then they were taken on the galleons that would go to the Philippines. And if you look at that history of that time, it was pretty horrible. It was horrible what was going on because Spain had colonized most of South America and they had a lock on currency because of gold and silver. They owned all the mines. And so they were opening up trade from the Americas to China
Mm,
and then China and back. So what goes along with that is not pleasant, especially for the native peoples.
mm-hmm.
And particularly Spain was justifying its colonization through the spread of Catholicism, because from the Renaissance on, there was this huge fights between the Protestants and the Catholics going on in Europe. And Spain was essentially the last great hope of Roman Catholicism. And so they took their evangelism very, very important. They took it very seriously. And so what was done in the name of the evangelization was pretty awful. But you have these images that essentially are templates for what the indigenous people survived during
Mm.
those times. And it's a gesture of love and inclusiveness and freedom and healing. And that's what I find immensely interesting.
Mm.
So that's what I think is interesting. So I've always seen the Black Madonna as this message of counterculture, whatever is going on. And as an artist, art is such a powerful method of resistance, essentially.
Resistance, yeah, a huge communication tool.
Mhm, mhm.
And just like these Black Madonnas are being served.
Totally, totally. So you have these images where the institutional church is like turning people away and turning people off. But then you have this image and you have these narratives which the natives embrace. And they embrace what I consider the essence of Christianity, which is love and community and inclusiveness, um, and resilience and solidarity. So
Mm.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm,
Community for sure. I see Black Madonna as community. Or
mhm,
that's what she's been telling me anyway.
mhm, mhm,
So some of the Black Madonnas have um I don't know what you call it, like what their healing is, or I don't
mhm,
so Black Madonna in Einsiedeln in Switzerland is Our Lady of Hermits.
mhm,
Can you
mhm.
explain that one a little further?
Sure. I don't remember exactly how it got to Switzerland and it got
Yeah.
into this hermit's possession. But she was in the possession of this hermit, and he was kind of. And if you ever go there, it's so beautiful there. Oh my God! And the soil is black.
Yeah,
It's
talk to
black.
me. Talk to me. Yes.
And there's this beautiful lake there. And what's interesting is it's close by where the gentleman Paracelsus was born. And Paracelsus is the basically the Western alchemist. He's just such an interesting person. They attribute all kinds of things to him, but he really was this physician scientist that brought about the understanding of alchemy into Western medicine.
Mm.
So he's born in this area. So it's very charged. It's just, ugh. And so there was this hermit that was out in this area, and he, you know, Christians have traditionally been very hospitable. They want to be hospitable to people. So he gave hospitality to some thieves who stole. They killed him actually, and they stole this. And Black Madonnas don't like being moved. So, so she didn't want to be moved, and so they abandoned her. And then other people took up, and the hermit became a saint. And they created this whole shrine around her. And what's really interesting was they were going to consecrate the chapel that was built in her honor, in the honor of this hermit. And when the priests came, they saw the whole chapel was illumined from the inside, like
Mm.
there was this glow from the inside, and the angels had come and consecrated the chapel. They didn't need the priests to do that, which I think is hysterically funny. And so she was very inspiring. She's basically the Black Madonna of the Germanic people.
Mm.
And her shrine is just spectacularly beautiful. I keep saying that word, but I don't know what else to use. And every when you see the image is surrounded like she's floating in a cloud of gold. It's really beautiful. And they have her in a little chapel in the front of this very large cathedral. And every day at 4 o'clock, the monks come out and sing Salve Regina.
Oh,
And every day they sing it with the same passion.
wow.
It's not like I don't know what your experience is. Sometimes you go to mass and the priest is going blah blah blah, because they say it every day.
Yeah.
These guys give it their all every day.
They give it their gusto.
It's so beautiful. And yeah, so that's most of her story. And then during the French Revolution, Napoleon's soldiers were on a rampage to burn all the Black Madonnas for reasons I don't understand. And they had burned a lot of them. They would try them, they would have a trial, and they would convict them of being anti whatever, and then they would burn them. And so the people at Einsiedeln were like, yeah, the French are coming, so we don't want this to happen. So they hid her, and she was hidden for numerous years until things quieted down. And then when they brought her out, they thought, well, we're going to clean her up.
Yeah.
She's a little dirty, so we're going to
Yeah.
clean her up. So they painted her white. And the villagers were like, who's this Madonna? This is not our Madonna. So the brothers knew that they had, a pilgrim attraction, which meant money.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
painted her black. And so when you see her, she's black. She's really black. And yeah, so she's inspired an entire, cathedral and music and, countless pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really lovely experience to experience her. Mhm.
Yeah, you got me again when you're like the soil there is so rich and
Black.
dark. And I have some cousins that are farmers, and it's like they're always nurturing the soil.
Mhm.
And I think, we really haven't talked about your other lens, anthroposophy lens,
Mhm.
that you're
Mhm.
looking at the Black Madonna through, and really like your lifestyle. I mean,
Mhm.
I just can't wait to dive more into that. Can you help us with that?
Well, I think of, it's interesting in terms of anthroposophy, when I was young, like I said, I was raised in a very loving environment. I had a wonderful father. My parents had a great marriage. They gave me wonderful opportunities.
Lucky.
Yeah, I was like, have you seen that t-shirt of children raised in, normal household, you know, adult children of normal parents, and there's like two people in the audience, you know. Well, the disadvantage of that is when you get out into the real world, you're shocked. Like, oh. But anyways, I was raised in a very, and religion was a very loving part of my youth. And like I said, when I started going to these, my father's Eastern Orthodox, my mother's Southern Baptist, I was raised as a Methodist. And then they decided to send me to Lutheran schools. And there's many different types of Lutherans,
Yeah.
but the Missouris are really rigid and very patriarchal. And so I was like, wow. And so I started researching and learning and looking at other traditions like Native American and pagan and all of this. And I always felt like, yeah, those are really cool. They're really neat. But there's something missing. There's just something missing for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
recognize other people, it's wonderful. But for me, and what I found through anthroposophy was an approach to Christianity that I felt was really holistic
Oh.
and mature.
Mm.
And it satisfies my cerebral, as you can tell.
Yeah.
It's there's nothing wrong with being cerebral. I enjoy it, but there there's got to be a combination, of the soul and the spirit. And you find in some sects it's just nothing but this very emotional approach to Christianity, which is valid. And then in others, it's super dry and intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
And I found through anthroposophy this really interesting and satisfying approach to spirit as well as soul. And because anthroposophy, started in Germany, in the 20s, like early 1900s, actually, and it tends to focus on the masculine. And I've just felt there had to be more. And so when I started delving, I thought, oh, there is more. There
Okay.
is. And so it's just part of our age where we need to ask more questions and we need to search, and it's there. It's not that it's not there, it's that nobody's asking the questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in middle school, we were talking about how the Bible came to be. And they said, well, they had these big conclaves and all these people came and they decided these were the books of the Bible. And I raised my hand. Well, were there any women there? And it comes to the Monty Python thing in the life of Brian. Are
Yeah.
there any women here? No, 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 no. But it's always like, you know, there's half of the planet is female.
Yes.
It seems like we might have a perspective,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So I just was asking the questions. That's all I did. And because I'm a scientist and I want to know why. I want to know why and I want to know how. And I think that's what my books look at. That's what my podcast looks at. And when I give talks and workshops, that's what I look at, how and why. So that's how I do it. Mhm.
Ah, that's so great. So anthroposophy, the not religion, but the wisdom of humanity.
Mhm. That's what the word means. Anthro is human, posophy, Sophia is basically wisdom. So it's a philosophy that builds on all the great wisdom traditions of humanity. So you start discussing something and they'll say, oh, well, that sounds like Hinduism.
Yeah.
That sounds like Buddhism. That sounds like Taoism. Oh, that's, Hebrew, Hebraic, Mosaic tradition, and that's Christian. So it and Druids and pagans and all sorts of things. But they build on all of these traditions and they say that for each age there's an appropriate wisdom tradition. And we're in the age of the Christ mysteries, essentially. And, before then it was the Greco-Roman mysteries. And before then it was the Chaldean. And then before then it was the Egyptian. And the some of the drawbacks of anthroposophy is it does look on the West a lot.
Mm,
So it doesn't necessarily look at the traditions in Africa or other than India. It does look at the Indian in terms of Asian. And
hmm.
they do bring in the Taoism and stuff. So what I look at through my research
Yeah.
is I look at American, Central, South, North, and I've also looked deeply at African. And the only reason that the philosophy hasn't is the person that was the main articulator of anthroposophy. His name is Rudolf Steiner. And what he did was he answered questions. Well, he answered questions of people from Germany and Austria in the first generation, like 1900 through 1925, I think is when he died, 26, something like that. And so people in that part of the world weren't asking lots of questions about America or Africa. And it wasn't anything to do with racism. It just wasn't interesting. They didn't think in those terms. But now we live in more of a global, interconnected culture,
Yeah.
and it's important to ask those questions now. So there are lots of people in anthroposophy that are asking those questions, and the answers they're having are just magnificent and beautiful and inclusive. And yeah, so but I resonated with it because my approach to Christianity was very ecumenical. And I find this approach to the what they call the Christ mystery very
Hmm.
satisfying.
Hmm.
That's why
Hmm.
I like it.
Hmm. You're so neat, and so you're so neat with the well-roundedness of like coming together from a science and spirit point of
Mhm,
view
mhm,
and just looking at it from so many different angles, you know.
mhm,
It's like you're really looking at it through the diamond, having
mhm,
everybody all the times that were happening to refract on each other and reflect
mhm,
back
mhm,
through that context.
mhm,
And then when you bring in your personal experiences
mhm,
with your livelihood and then your career,
mhm,
as the scientist and medical with your acupuncture, right? Like you're
mhm.
into body
Oh,
meridians.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, anthroposophy as a philosophy embraces all of culture. So there's medicine, there's art, there's philosophy, there's religion, there's education, there's economics. And in terms of the medicine, there is a whole branch of medicine called anthroposophical medicine, which is really beautiful. And you would like it because one of the major therapies is art.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
there's different arts that are prescribed for different issues.
Yeah.
So, the seven liberal arts, but there's painting is specific for emotional healing, and sculpture is specific for the will,
Oh.
and there's speech and there's singing and there's movement and all of that. And it's basically saying that humans are interdimensional creatures. We have physical bodies. This is, I always say if my body was an illusion, I would have a different illusion. You know, my body would have the bottom a little more shapely, or um, we have physical, we are here, the material world is real, all of that, but we have this connection with spirit
Yeah.
that is deeply interconnected, and we need to look at both of those. And what is fascinating to me about acupuncture is that acupuncture, the little points that go along our bodies, and again, I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that? How did they
Hmm.
learn that? And each acupuncture point on the body has a star related to it in the heavens.
The cosmology comes out, folks. Here we
Yes,
go.
it does because it's based on Taoism.
Okay.
And how I've started to see this as an anthroposophist
Hmm.
is this connection between the physical body and the cosmos. And we're basically doing etheric surgery. That's what we're doing. It's fascinating.
It's yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's so many things I could say right now. Just like getting a download, like we need to talk about some so where are you? We need to talk about like the magnetic fields of the earth and like where these Black Madonnas are.
Yeah. Okay. As an acupuncturist,
Yeah.
what I see is the placement of these Black Madonnas is basically on acupuncture points of the planet. That's how
I'm
I
here
see
for it.
it.
I am here for it. Yes.
And that's an upcoming book.
Is it really?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, put me on your waiting list.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I've just finished Byzantium and the Black Madonna, and the two less ones that are left is one is talking about wisdom of the South, about the African influence on the Black Madonnas.
Yeah.
And then the last one is as above, so below, that the
Okay.
Black Madonna is a connector between the heavens and the earth. Mhm.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
And because I kept going, what are they? What, like, who are you really?
Yeah.
Who are you? And why are you buried underground? And why are you in caves? And why are you along these pathways of mystery centers? Why are you there? What is that about? And I'll give you the spoiler alert. They're about reminding humanity of our job to connect the heavens and the earth. That's what they're about. And that's why they resonate. And this whole concept of transformation, and as an artist, you transform this impulse into material reality with your hands. That's what you do.
Yeah.
It's an act of will. And the Black Madonnas have these huge hands, and they're pointing downward, and they usually have stars on their heads. So they have stars on their heads, these big hands pointing downward, and they're underground.
I don't know what to say. I'm speechless right now. I'm getting really emotional. It's
I
so
have,
cool.
I have, if I would say I have this long gray hair, I'd look like a very large dandelion.
Always going back to the earth. I love it. I love it.
So that's what I think they are. That's what I think they are. And I feel that's the most important aspect of them. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking me on your journey because
You're welcome.
I this is a new feeling for me with
Mhm.
Black Madonna, and you were definitely part of my spark, and so was Reverend Francis Faden when you two had your
Definitely. Many
conversation.
thanks to her.
Yeah, and Megan Watterson introduced me. She's the feminist theologian on Mary Magdalene, and
Yes.
reading about that, and another sister, Lisa Lister, was all about it. And I just was so into my Venus energy, which I still am,
Mhm.
huge devotee. But Venus told me to study her hands.
Isn't that interesting?
So today, right now, I'm even more excited to go on my pilgrimage to Switzerland.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Incredible.
I'm glad.
I'm going to make sure everybody has your book notes and your
Thank you.
podcast notes to listen because I hear you just recorded one yesterday. So let's get more into that for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Um, But before we go, can I just ask one more thing? The
Sure.
seven things that you're saying with the art therapy, like painting is emotional and hands is the willing. What were the others?
Well, hands is willing. It's sculpture because sculpture is it's to help people who need help with their will.
Okay.
Mm.
Oh, I never looked at it like that. Are there others?
They have a speech therapy. They have
Oh,
movement, which is called eurythmy.
oh, cool.
And yeah, I think those are the big ones. Speech, painting, sculpture, speech, movement. Yeah, those
Movement.
are the big
Yeah, I can
ones.
totally see that. Okay.
Singing. I'm sorry, singing. Music. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's a great vibration to get
Mhm.
into. Yeah.
Definitely. Hmm.
Do you have like a song that you hear when you visit these Madonnas? It's like I can't let you go. I have to ask more questions.
No, I don't actually.
Are
I
you
don't.
like quiet?
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a tour coming up are you gonna, do you have another pilgrimage set up for you?
We have one set up, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. So, yeah,
So
that's
we need to keep
unfortunate.
checking your
But at
website.
some point, there will be one.
Okay.
Hmm.
That sounds good. I think you would be so fun to travel with. So I'm going to look forward to that being on that wait list and your new book. Thanks for the spoiler alert, the sneak peek.
Yeah, get the Reader's Digest version.
I'm so excited. Thank you for sharing that.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you for being an artist and helping to translate this wonderful, beautiful messages from the spiritual world into reality. Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. It is a magic that I can't deny.
Mm,
And when I see it, I got sparks flying. And
mm,
with every artist, I've helped thousands of artists, either with some business counseling or actually making and doing and
mm,
working with their colors. It's like there is a magic. There's a spark that
mm,
happens.
mm.
Yeah.
It's definite. Mhm.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.